Is that pheromones or what is that? Is that like a...
Yeah, I guess.
Is that hormones?
Pheromones, hormones, everything that's, leaking out of the sweat.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I sweat a lot, so I'm glad Martha likes me.
Yeah.
Hopefully it smells good.
As long as it smells good to her.
Yeah, it's all matters, right?
Matters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What else should we know about smell in relationships? Is there anything else we should know about this?
In relationships, I wouldn't say that there's that much more, but just bringing it back around to this super smeller thing. Do you know about medical detection dogs that can detect cancer?
I've heard this.
Yeah. So the research that I'm, very interested in, that's the reason I was having this discussion with this guy, is that he's actually made a simulated nose that can detect cancer to the same level as dog. Yeah.
Wow.
It's amazing.
That's fascinating.
I know. And also in nursing homes, where they have cats and dogs, just to give people company and comfort, they go and sit outside the doors of people that are about to die in the next few days. Because when we're dying, our organs start to die off in a certain order. And that lysis of cells, cell death, otherwise known as apoptosis or lysis, they can smell that. Because obviously they're down on the ground. They've got a lot more smell receptors than us. Because in the animal kingdom, they're not finding their partner attractive because of visuals. They're doing it more on smell.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. So what, cats and dogs will sit outside of a nursing home of the door of someone who's about to pass?
Yeah.
Really?
Even if it's not yet known by the medical staff that person is
They
soon
just do
to
this
die.
intuitively? Why,
through smell.
But why are they trained to do this, or they just kind of do this because they want to bring comfort to that person, or?
So the medical detection dogs are obviously trained to detect cancers, but what we see in nursing homes is there's no training involved. It's just that because they can smell it, they go and sit there. They want to offer comfort. Maybe they want to signal to the staff that this is something that's happening.
That is fascinating.
I know.
Wow.
So what I think is, in terms of us being able to expand our consciousness, is that if there are biological models, and by that I mean cats and dogs that can smell death, or bats that can hear things that we can't hear, dolphins, flies that can see things that we can't see. If there are biological models that can do that, is it possible that we can do more of that?
That's interesting.
And I'm applying that to cognitive science, because obviously that's my area. And the question I love asking people is, have you ever thought of someone that you haven't been in touch with for a while and suddenly they message you? Has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, of course.
So everybody says, of course.
Is that what you messaged me the other day?
No, that was because it was your birthday.
Exactly.
But if it was
I'm thinking of everyone. That's why I'm getting messages.
I know. So if that phenomenon happens,
why is that? Why does that happen when you're thinking of someone and then the next day they text you or call you?
Well, we don't know, but that's what I'm so excited to dive into next.
Fascinating, right?
Because if you can control that, then what are the possibilities?
So if you had a hypothesis on why we think of something and then that person calls you, or two people are talking about you and then you call those people, what do you think, based on neuroscience, that is, if you had a guess?
I'm going to give you a science answer and a spiritual answer.
I love it.
I love it. Has to be
Blend it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
So the science answer is mostly based on Carl Jung's psychological theories about the collective unconscious, which means that on some level that we are not consciously aware of, there is a connection between our psyches. And a couple of examples of this are, at the start of the pandemic, there was a global phenomenon of vivid dreaming. And that hasn't happened in the world since the last World War.
Globally, this was happening.
Yeah. So literally, me in my country house in England, you in LA, someone in a tiny village in Africa, we were all experiencing that. And it was mostly anxiety-based, which completely makes sense, right? But for people in very, very different circumstances, and dreaming is a huge part of our emotional processing, that was going on. Then there's the example of people saying you thought of somebody and then they messaged you. Twins definitely seem to have a higher level of being able to know if the other one's thinking about them. So that is to do with, the only explanation that we have for that at the moment is this potential collective unconscious idea. And then, because I've been doing some research into the first American cultures, one of the things I've learned is that our construct of time as linear, which is that there's a past, a present, and a future, well, that's a man-made construct. We don't actually know how time works. A lot of the first American nations believe that time happens in a spiral. And so as you are progressing through your life, you are passing by times and things and people that you've passed by before. And most people just have blinkers on and aren't aware of that at all. But if you're more open to the fact that time works in a different way, then you would understand that there's no such thing as coincidence or serendipity. It's because you're mentally passing through places that you've been past before.
At the same time, or you're going back in time, or...
Well, it's, no, not so that you're not going back in time. I don't think we can do that yet, but you're passing close to, let's call it memories or emotions or intuitions that we're not normally, they're not in our brain. They might be, what we're thinking now is that the brain is filtering our mind down to survive in this material world, and that actually our consciousness could be much bigger than that. And areas of research I've looked at around that are things like, I'll explain these terms in a minute if you don't know what they are.
Sure.
Terminal lucidity, near-death experiences, and past life memories. So terminal lucidity is when someone who's got dementia or they've had a stroke or a brain injury suddenly becomes completely lucid. So they go from not recognizing their own children, not even knowing that they have children anymore, to suddenly saying, Lewis, son, come here. I want to say something to you that's really important to me. And usually they die within 1 to 24 hours of that happening.
It's like when they come back to like who they were or where they are now, it's like quickly the end is coming soon.
The end is coming. But
why is that?
We don't know why, but so basically there's this amazing doctor called Dr. Alexander Bathiani, who's this is his life's work. He's head of the Viktor Frankl Institute, and from that, lineage of Austrian psychologists that are kind of super famous. And so he's documented many cases of this. That means that a brain that if you scanned it would show a lot of damage can fully retain its consciousness. But we can't control that yet, but we can see that it can happen, right? People who report near-death experiences, and this includes some high-profile doctors and scientists now, basically say that, and this is proven through, they were in cardiac arrest for a certain amount of time. They flatlined, their EEG also flatlined, for longer than you would think anyone could survive without oxygen, come back and they're alive again. And they have, a lot of stuff happens around that in terms of like spiritual awakening and like how you view life and death. But the main point is your brain became completely inactive and starved of oxygen for a length of time that we don't believe is possible to recover from.
5, 10, 20 minutes.
And then you did.
Yeah.
Fully back to full consciousness. So we can't all have a near-death experience, right?
Yeah.
But in Tibetan Buddhism, they do dark retreats to stimulate a near-death experience. In the really ancient cultures like the Greeks and Egyptians, they used to bury people for days. But these people became the mystics and the seers of those communities. So just the fact that I'm so excited about this, is, that we've got brain scanning technology now. We've got really sophisticated technology. We know we're remembering some of these things that we knew a long time ago. The thought of putting those two things together and, especially with AI rising right next to us like it is, I just feel it's got so much potential for humanity.
How many dimensions is our mind capable of being in?
So I was just at this conference, which is a super spiritual one, a little bit even on the edge for me.
Fringe, yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, so there was a speaker talking about going from 3 dimensions to 5 dimensions. And
because we're in 3D right now.
Yeah.
But the goal is, I guess the goal to manifest would be to get into 5D.
Yeah.
More frequently, isn't that correct?
Yeah. And when I really sort of tried to pin her down on how do you actually do this, it comes down to...
And what is the difference between 3D and 5D as a neuroscientist?
I have to say I'm not an expert on this, but it's obviously opening up the dimensions of your mind and your consciousness to one of the things that she mentions, and I'm not saying that there's science to this right now, but I think it's very interesting, is opening up channels of communication to the angelic realms. So
interesting.
Actually, I didn't really give you the context for this, which is that since the pandemic, people have lost loved ones to actual death. A lot of relationships broke down, and I'm talking marriages, friendships, working relationships, and a lot of, mental health problems are massively on the rise, and that involves this loss of sense of self, this loss of purpose. I don't know who I am anymore. I can't trust my gut anymore. And so I'm trying to find the answers to help people who've been through that. And if you take grief as an example, if you think that somebody in your family or a very close friend died and you're never going to see them again and you're never going to hear from them again, and you have to carry on in this life, that must be so painful. And I don't know how people can ever necessarily get over that. If you believe that our consciousness doesn't disappear with physical death, and that if we learn how to expand our minds to access different planes, that potentially you could remain connected and bonded in some kind of way to a person that you loved very much in this life, wouldn't you want that?
Mm-hmm. So how do we start to train our brain to unlock new dimensions outside of this 3-dimensional world?
I am going to take it back to this raised awareness that we talked about, because I guess you'd have to be open to thinking that it's possible. Yeah.
So if you're closed-minded to it, then you're not going to be able to create that.
No. And you'll just think that it's going to be a waste of your time because it's not going to work.
Yes.
So I would like to pose hypotheses to people like the one that I just said to you. Like, if you thought that there could be some way that you can remain connected to someone that you'd lost, wouldn't you want that? Well, because your answer was yes. And your answer wasn't, well, of course I would, but it's not possible. Like there's going to be all sorts of answers that people would give. Then I would ask you to operate on the basis that that might be true. And so that could look like different things for different people. That could be have a conversation with that person in your head or have a conversation with that person out loud. I mean, I think that Richard E. Grant very famously says, I was married to my wife for so long that I kind of know the answer that she would give. So I have conversations with her in my head as if they're between me and her. But obviously it's my brain that's kind of creating the answer, but it is based on what I think she would say. So that's acceptable to most people.
Yes.
That would be acceptable. You could take it further, and people often report that they experience, words or thoughts in their head that they don't believe are theirs. However, you're now veering into how I would diagnose someone with schizophrenia.
Right, I'm hearing voices.
Yeah. And thought insertion is also a diagnostic symptom of schizophrenia.
Thought insertion.
Yeah, so there are thoughts in my head that aren't my own.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Are all of our thoughts our own thoughts?
Well, I just think this is becoming questionable. I can't give you the definitive answer to that, but
And where do our thoughts come from?
Exactly. I mean, that's called the hard problem of neuroscience, because there isn't a full understanding of whether our thoughts only arise from neurons and chemicals, or whether we're a higher, being than that, and we have the ability to feel these emotions and have thoughts, and then the neurochemical response is a consequence of that. Something that people have been arguing about literally forever. So, without all the answers, I would just ask people to explore. Another thing that you can do that is just like a very joyous one is, so I've got this hashtag that I often use called I find hearts, and I literally like
see hearts
everywhere. And it's just, it's just so sweet, and people love it, and they send me their pictures of the same. So up until recently, that's always been random. Like I'll be walking and then I'll see like a like a defect in the pavement, but it's heart-shaped kind of thing. But one thing that I've started experimenting with is asking for specific signs that are really unusual things that you wouldn't expect to see in certain places, and then just seeing what happens and writing it into my journal.
Like almost asking for a sign to confirm something, or to say, show me something unusual, or show me this if I should take this direction, or what do you mean?
Yeah, so I wouldn't say show me something unusual. I would specify what it is.
Show me a pink elephant
Yes.
In the middle of the night, or whatever.
Maybe not that specific.
Okay,
Maybe just
show
a
me
pink
a pink
elephant.
elephant. That's too unique. Yeah. Show me a pink elephant if I'm supposed to take this action.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And you could easily say that really it's just your intuition, and we understand how intuition works now. But you could also extrapolate it to being about something else, and that's kind of where I want to push our thinking.
What does neuroscience tell us about signs, signals, and synchronicities? Are they, something we should be paying attention to based on neuroscience and brain chemistry, or is it more spiritual woo-woo?
Well, neuroscience doesn't tell us anything about that, or much, let's say, about that at the moment. But that's why I'm probably going to write another book, which I said I would never do. But I'm just so fascinated by this. So when I get back to London, I'm going to start like properly doing the research on this. So far, it's been kind of something I'm interested in. And I have to say, I wasn't sure if my book publisher would be okay with it. And
about these things, signs, signals, synchronicities?
Yeah.
Well, that's fascinating. I love that stuff.
And I think that it coming from a neuroscientist is a new angle. It's not that there aren't books out there on this kind of thing. But I really want to open up that conversation as well, because there's a lot of people suffering. And like I said, you can sound like you're crazy if you start talking about stuff like this. So I want to open up the conversation, being open, but trying to keep it as rigorous as possible to give people permission to come forward and share these stories, because I think that's only going to be good for everyone.
Wow. That's cool. So when someone sees the signs, signals, and synchronicities happening in their life, what do you think that's telling them? That they're on the right path, that they should be paying attention more, that they should be trusting their intuition more when they're seeing these three things?
So I feel like what it says, and somebody said this to me actually the last time I was in LA, but it had to land really emotionally for me to believe it, and that's what I want for everyone, is it tells you that you are being guided, and it tells you that you're safe and protected.
All right.
And one of the things I picked up from you a couple of years ago was that you said, sometimes, if I'm feeling like in an emotional crisis, I just say to myself, I'm safe, I'm safe, I'm safe. And I can't tell you how many times I've used that in the last 2 years.
Wow, that's beautiful.
But that's kind of like self-soothing the inner child, right?
Yes. With
this kind of interest and more esoteric things that I've had, like since I met you that time, I'd like to think that I'm not just safe because I tell myself I'm safe, but I'm safe because I believe in something greater.
Yes.
And I'm tapping into it, and I'm allowing it to make me feel safe. Because however good you become psychologically at soothing yourself, you can still feel very alone. So feeling like...
Unless you have a deeper spiritual connection to something.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
Wow, that's fascinating. Do you believe that we can be in beautiful, healthy, loving relationships, and we can manifest everything we have on our vision or action boards if we have yet to heal the wounds of our childhood? As a neuroscientist?
No.
Really? Wow. So if we have these visions and dreams and goals that we want to go after, and if we want to have a beautiful relationship, but we are wounded still, the inner child is wounded inside of us as adults, what will happen to us?
So this is really about inner child and shadow, right? So I think people understand that you've got an inner child that maybe didn't get over things that you experienced in your childhood. Shadow is about the parts of yourself that you've rejected because as a young child, you rely on your primary caregivers for survival.
Yes.
And if there is something that they don't love about you, you want to hide that for all the world so that they will still love you and not let you die.
You don't want anyone to know this about you.
No.
That's shame.
So you hide it away in childhood and often find yourself in adulthood no longer even aware of what those things are because you've rejected them so deeply.
Wow.
Yeah. But that's driving a lot of your unconscious behavior.
Right.
So if you put together the inner child and the shadow, then what happens is you meet people on the same level of psychological wound as you.
Oh, man.
You also leave people where if you evolve out of that and they haven't been able to.
Wow. Which I think goes back to one of the pieces of content I heard you talk about, which is like the sense of smell connecting to someone's stress levels or anxiety levels. Like you'll kind of attract a similar nervous system, or I guess a certain similar, like, I don't know, stress level.
Yeah.
Is that right?
So it's not
the nervous system.
it's not smell. It's sensing, not through
Sensing.
smell, the level of the stress hormone. Yeah.
Interesting.
But that's short term, right? But the inner child and shadow stuff is longer term.
Gosh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So you think we attract people based on our psychological wounds?
100%.
Wow. And as we start to heal and grow, if the other person's not healing and growing, we kind of pull away.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That's interesting.
Oh, I can see the cogs moving in your
I just
brain.
think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Speaking, I guess, about relationships and men and women, with all of your expertise on the brain, is the process of manifesting love and falling in love different from men versus women?
I think if it's love you're really looking for, then it's not different. But
Not lust.
yeah, so the issue is what you're actually looking for.
So you think men and women manifest love the same way, similar ways?
Yeah, I think if you want that sense of partnership and friendship and intimacy and you want to be loyal and you want it to be for the long term, then it doesn't matter what gender you are. Mm-hmm. But if the disconnect is often, and this is a bit of a stereotype, but usually it's more that women want a loving, stable relationship and men perhaps, don't want that as much.
Want sex or whatever, yeah.
Or just don't want it right now, but go through periods where that's what they want and go through periods where that's not what they want, which I guess could be true of any gender as well. But overall, more likely women will want to be in a monogamous relationship. And
why is that, based on kind of the brain science?
So it comes from evolution. So when we lived in the cave, women did need men to protect them from predators and to hunt for food. So women,
especially if they're pregnant too, and they weren't able to go out and hunt or gather or whatever it might be.
They generally didn't hunt as much, so they gathered more. But then it's hard to get protein from what you gather rather than what you hunt. So for survival, and they use the fat and the skins and everything. So it wasn't just food; it was shelter and fire and all of that kind of stuff. So although we don't necessarily need a man for those physical things now, it's a very strong survival wiring in the brain. And so what we have, in the cave, we lived nomadically. So often the men would go and hunt and be away for a very long time. Or if they went far enough and they found a cave of the same tribe, they would just stay there and not go back. Why risk your life to travel back for 6 weeks?
Right.
But over time, a lot of societies in the modern world have asked people to live in unit families. And so we have seen men's brains be rewired.
Really?
Yeah. So relatively recently, like maybe in the last 10 years, research has showed that when you become a dad for the first time, oxytocin rewires your brain so that you're more into bonding and less into the testosterone competitive stuff. Because if you think about it, lions and tigers, they'll eat their own children.